tonight we have also, we got lucky and we have the privilege of having the presence of Ernest Tannis. Ernest was part of a group who established the Dispute Resolution Center of Ottawa Carleton in 1987. The interest of that initiative had led to the creation of the Canadian Institute for Conflict Resolution, CICR, that was formed to advance conflict resolution research and training. Ernest became CICR's executive director from 1999 to 1992, and he also wrote the first book in Canada on ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution That Works. He also wrote another book, Is Everyone at the Table? For those that were with Esther, you probably heard her say and ask that question, who else should be invited at the table? And that book has inspired our quest for inclusion of all the voices in conflict resolution over the years. That book, wrote a while back, I have here, it's not hot from the press because it's a work in progress. Ernest has been working on adding 5 chapters to that book, and he's gonna launch at the Nation next year. We were happy that he was able to join us tonight. And I would like to invite Ernest to come and address some words before we give you finally the certificates in your hands, from our hands, from Jolene's and Ernest. And please, Ernest, if you were so kindly to come.
Well, thank you, Daniel. This is a pleasant surprise. I'd like to start, because I'm just going off the top of my head, but I'd like to honor the recipient of the Richard Batsuko Award. When you mentioned about love, that's what I feel in this room tonight, is love. And it brings back memories in 1986 when we set up the CICR. It was all done out of love. And we took a journey where we didn't know where we were going. You have no idea how much love I feel in this room. Everyone's like a ripple, and each ripple becomes a wave that washes away unresolved conflict from the shores of injustice. And you take that love with you, and we learn from our ancestors. So Daniel said I had a few minutes. I said, if you can't strike oil with the time you're given, stop boring. There's nothing boring about this subject. But let me start with a setup for the few minutes I have. In the mid-1990s, they held what they called the first international mediation conference in the world in Los Angeles. And Canada was invited to have a seat, and for some reason, the CICR was invited, and they asked me to speak. It was a great honor. The Dean of Law was the moderator. There was 1,000 people in the room, all the great leaders in conflict resolution from everywhere in the room, and we each had 15 minutes. So I gave my 15 minutes. I felt really good, very honored for Canada to have this. And then, as I was walking down the aisle, this woman stops me and says, Mr. Tannis, look here, I took 10 pages of notes. Well, my ego. She's a PhD student. Took 10 pages of notes. She says, I have a question for you. Oh, I was ready for the question. She said, what was your point? Such humility. So I want to make my point. There are so many people that cannot be named. But I want to focus on the impact of the First Nations people on our thinking and the path we should take. And in that, it turned out, if you were old enough to remember or read about it, back in 1989, there was a civil war in Akwesasne, the Mohawk territory, Cornwall, part of New York State, Ontario, Quebec, United States, Canada. Somebody said you should get an honorary law degree just to live there. But that was also at the same time as the Oka crisis. Other nations would not call it a civil war because they didn't recognize First Nations as a nation. It's reserved for, so they called it a civil strife. The CICR was invited with every group in North America to become the conflict resolution consultant to their mediation group. For some reason, they picked the CICR, and I was asked to live among the people with a great team of elders. So many people helped us, guide us. William Commanda, Algonquin, the Mashantucket Pequot tribe, the Cree Nation, the Mohawk people, Tom Porter. So we spent a few years, and what they set up was a model for the world. They called it Skendangoa, an organization for peace in Akwesasne. This was a community that had violence. They were evacuated. There's still unsolved murders. The person who wrote the foreword to this new book, which is an Aboriginal theme, talked about how the young people, they had all this violence, but the community got their peace back together. It was an incredible, unexpected result. I dare to say publicly, don't quote me, but there were some outsiders that didn't want them to get their act together. Because if they didn't, in terms of the Iroquois Confederacy and the lack of peace in Akwesasne and post-Oka, it would have been another step towards the problems. But they did get their act together. And they became our advisors. At that time, I'd left my law practice, thanks to my wife, Mary, who said that liquidating our assets to make this journey of peace to learn. I didn't know what I was going to do. In 1992, when it was settled, I said, well, what am I going to do now? I talked to the elders. They said, well, Ernie, we've been told by our ancestors and the Creator, when you came across the river to our community and helped us, you also learned. You must go back across the river to where you came from. I said, you want me to go back to practicing law? You've got to be kidding me. Fortunately, we had lawyers who believed in access to justice, not just access to litigation fees. But the wisdom of the First Nations people needs to be continued to be understood. The notion of reconciliation is universal, and the depth of the patience, as one Native leader said a long time ago, be patient with the white man. When they know they can't eat money, they're going to have to come back to nature. And we must take care of each other. So I want to recognize those teachings. And I do want to say that were it not for that Aboriginal wisdom and the connections we had, there would not be a third-party neutral program. They helped us create a program that was multicultural, universal, and brought in the values of collaboration. And there's a beautiful paragraph that Jolene Adams wrote, who took the Spirit Walk, which I will get to you. Beautiful summary about why Skendangoa worked. And I want to recognize that wisdom collectively and Akwesasne for guiding us. And I think what I want to end with in terms of this kind of theme is at the end of the Akwesasne Civil War, there's still some unsolved murders there. In Oka, there's a murder of an SQ officer. There was a big debriefing in Montreal. And that's where the title of this book came from. Because people were asked to talk, and I was asked to say something. The Mohawk people talked about their community. I was asked to talk about the conflict resolution. And I said to this group of hundreds of people from all levels of government, all the military, police, I said, I respect you've done everything to have everyone at the table, but is everyone at the table? And that became the title of the book, thanks to a Native person who brought up that question. So in Cornwall, they had another large gathering, and every level of government, Ontario, Quebec, New York State, federal government, United States, Canada, the military, the police force, the place was packed. And the keynote speaker was a Cree, And I quote him in my book. So he got up, was the keynote speaker, and he said, I want to tell you about the Europeans and the Aboriginal peoples who were here for centuries before they came. We saw this big book. That's what there's a big boat coming to shore. And the Warrior Society said to the elders, this is a story he's telling, we have this big boat, we haven't seen it, they're coming to hurt us. And the elders said, no, we are all children under the Creator. We have something to learn, I'm sure, and we have something to give. So they set aside their spears, and they were told to say, Quebec, Quebec, which in Cree at the time, he said meant, come ashore, come ashore. And they came ashore, and it's a few hundred years later, and look where we are now. With good memory of Mary Sinclair and the Reconciliation Committee, look where we are now. And he said, if we had known then what we know now, we wouldn't have said, Quebec, come ashore. We would have said, go back, go back. And we don't want to go back to the old ways. And to carry this love forward, I can't tell you, I had a near-death experience a few weeks ago, and I saw this white light. And when you said what you said about love, I had this fear of death. And then all I remember is asking for the love of God. And then I was enveloped by this white light. And when you said tonight that word, all I felt was love. Take this love with you. And thank you to the graduates for carrying on this beautiful journey in this world. Thank you.
Round of applause for Phoebe Biles. Martha Ainella Kibili. Marie-Josée Chalot. Don Shepard. William Tate, who is not here today. Matthew Fields. Edith Germain. Chad James. Linda Menach Benet. Justin Zindula. Colleen Chambers. And finally, last but not least, Matilda Olagwa.